Welcome along to the Gary Neville Podcast. We have been at Old Trafford today to see Manchester United give a considerable boost to their hopes of being in the Champions League next season. That felt like a big result for them, Gary.
Yeah, really big. I thought before the game that Manchester United would win. My actual only concern, it was actually a question that I asked Michael Carrick before the game when we spoke to him, was that this 11-day break that they've had. Look, you can build it as having time on the pitch with the players, but then there's a lack of rhythm that you build in your competitiveness, and just having too many days in between sort of matches I think can be a problem sometimes. And maybe that's what we saw in the first half, a result of a quite disappointing 45 minutes from both teams. The game didn't really get going. I actually asked a couple of fans in there when I went into the toilet half-time, I said, what do you think? They said boring, and it was just a little bit like, Ahmad had the header. There were two or three really good crosses put into the box, but there was a real lack of urgency. We'll come on to Villa obviously shortly. But for United, it was a must-win today. And I think it was really important that they showed some sort of level of performance, because I think in the first 3 or 4 Michael Carrick matches, there was a really high level of performance where I was really excited. And then in the next 3 or 4, the results were there, but the performances weren't quite at the level. And that can happen when you're sort of playing matches and you don't always play at sort of a real high performance level. But eventually, when you play 60-40 matches, 50-50 matches, and you're winning them, eventually you will get caught out. And that happened against Newcastle when they obviously lost their last game. So I thought today, the results the most important at this stage of the season. But I also thought it was time to show a performance. I thought the second half, they were really good. And I think Bruno had a massive impact on that. But I think, look, I always imagine what managers will say to players at half-time. And I know Michael Carrick pretty well. He's not going to go in there and start shouting and screaming. But I think he'll be quite sort of firm with them at half-time and say, look, lift it. Get your urgency right. Get your tempo and your passing right. Do things quicker. Get to set pieces quicker. Get to corners quicker. Throw-ins quicker. Demonstrate sort of what would be an intent to the opposition, that you're up for this and that they're not going to get away with it. And I thought from the very first minute in the second half, the first 5 minutes of the second half, United were really good. And I thought Bruno, to be fair, you could see him. He was just like getting to the ball quicker. He was moving it quicker. Far too many times, and this is actually not a Manchester United thing, I'm sick of seeing teams have defenders on the ball at the back rolling their foot on it. A defender should never, ever, in my mind, roll his foot on the ball at the back and be looking at the game as if there's some sort of like Beckenbauer or Koeman type figure. They're not. There's no Beckenbauers or Koemans out there on that pitch that can play 60-yard passes and sort of dictate the game. Very exceptional centre-backs, I would accept rolling their foot on it. I just see so many times the Villa centre-backs on the 6-yard box with Martinez. I saw United centre-backs taking far too long on the ball. Get the ball with accuracy and speed into the best players in the pitch as quickly as possible. And that is, to me, what United should be about. The second half, or the first half, they didn't get the ball into Bruno Fernandes anywhere near enough. They didn't get the ball into the front three. I think Mbeumo only had, 10 or 11 touches, and none of them were in the right areas of the pitch. Similarly with Ollie Watkins as well, by the way. But in the second half, Bruno Fernandes got on the ball in dangerous areas very quickly, and he got himself more involved as well. So it was a complete difference in shift. But that can happen when you're not at the game for 11 days. You sometimes can come out there just rusty. Simple as that. It's like when you've not driven maybe for a couple of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, and you're away on holiday and you come back and you just think, oh, get your bearings back. It's a little bit like that, and I think that's what maybe United were suffering in that first half. But Michael Carrick, I think, will have had a firm word with them about basically those simple basics of playing with more urgency and speed. And I thought when United actually did get the tempo up, I didn't think Villa could sort of what would be level with them at all. Yeah, and it's a really good day for Manchester United. Thought Bruno Fernandes was exceptional in that second half. He was brilliant.
The first goal was scored by somebody who, in all probability, if United are in the Champions League next season, won't be here to play in it for them. Is Casemiro, like Fernandes, a standard setter here, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got such vast experience. Obviously, Manchester United have been getting him at the latter part of his career. You imagine when you see him now, well, we know, because we watched him win 5 Champions Leagues, what he is an exceptional central midfield player that played in one of the most dominant central midfields that you'll ever see. An amazing midfield up at Madrid. But United, it's right that United do let him go, and it's right that he does leave United. This is like a cameo at the end of his career, almost like a swan song, where he's probably loving every minute of this, and you can see it. He's showing his badge, he's sort of kissing his badge to the fans. The fans absolutely love him. And it's right that he does leave at the end of the season. They will miss his presence in both boxes. I think that he's phenomenal at getting on the end of of crosses, and I think he's phenomenal at clearing them. He's brave, by the way, in the air. He's really good. He gets up early. It was an exceptional goal. But United need 2 central midfield players in the summer. You know, in the transfer window last August, they rebuilt the forward line with Šeško, Mbeumo and Cunha to go along with the likes of Fernandes and Ahmad. And that's really now starting to sort of hum a little bit, and it's starting to purr. And you can see that there are real goals and real threat, because Manchester United haven't scored enough goals last season. That's the absolute no here. You have to score goals. So they've corrected that in the sense that, you know, with Bruno Fernandes creating, even Mason Mount I would throw into that when he's fit, there does look to be good options up top. But the centre of midfield is a problem. I think, to be fair, Mainu and Casemiro are doing a great job right now for Michael Carrick. However, every United fan in this stadium knows that is going to be nowhere near enough when Manchester United start playing in the Champions League next season, which it's more than likely they will, and they don't get knocked out of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup in the first rounds. So when they play a bit further in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, and they're playing in the Champions League, they're going to need 3 or 4 really good midfield players. And at the moment, you've got Mainu, that's a midfield player who I think you can definitely sort of buy into, but you can't really look at any of the others and think that that's going to work. Casemiro's leaving. Ugarte, I think, will leave. So they need 2 really good central midfield players. Probably one that's more positional, maybe like a Michael Carrick type, and one that's maybe more of a destroyer. So I think that basically they need those 2 players. That's the next area, I think, of focus. I do think the back needs looking at, but I think midfield will be the real focus in the summer transfer window. But Casemiro is doing a great job for United right now. It's been an enormous investment in someone who's getting towards the end of his career. I mean,
with your business hat on, I was going to ask you this. Do you think it was a good investment? Because, I mean, we've seen the goal he scored today. He scored a big goal for them, didn't he, in that League Cup final, one of the 2 trophies they won under Erik ten Hag. Have they got value for money out of him in his time here?
Look, this is nothing to do with Casemiro. This is to do with Manchester United's poor recruitment over many, many years and them overpaying. They've invested £140 million in Casemiro, £20 million a year in wages and £60 million in a fee. That's not a clever move, because they're now losing him for nothing. So no, I mean, if you're spending £140 million on a midfield player over 4 years, you'd expect that there'd be some sort of residual value at the end of it. You wouldn't be expecting that he would be running his career down and sort of getting to 35. So it's not a deal that Manchester United would do today. You know, and you can see that with the purchasing they've made in the summer of Larmans, Šeško, Cunha and Mbeumo. They're all ages where they've got growth in them. So that type of signing won't happen again, I don't think, at the club. I'd be amazed if it did. This is not a slight on Casemiro, because I think Casemiro's given his absolute all for this football club. I think he's, to be fair, someone who absolutely leaves everything out there on the pitch. His legs at times have let him down. What I would say is there's a period in the middle of his 4-year contract where he looked heavier in his body, and I don't know what happened there. Whether it's the training, whether it's something that's happened with him or whatever, I don't know. But he looks fitter, he looks leaner, he looks freer. And look, he's doing a great job. But no, you can't say it's been a great investment at £140 million, but that's not Casemiro's fault. You know, I think the rumour has it that he basically at the end, you know, when he got offered the money, he just couldn't believe it. He just couldn't believe that basically Manchester United were offering him that level of money, and that he basically had to go. I think that, to me, that just tells it all. But that's not a slight on him, because I actually think that he's given his absolute every, you know, bit of energy that he could for 4 years at the club. But it's more of a reflection on the club and the sort of what would be issues that Manchester United were having 4 years ago when they signed Anthony, I think, in that same transfer window for 85 million. So, to be fair, Manchester United are in a pretty different place now in respect to, I don't think Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox will do that type of signing. In fact, they won't. I'm pretty sure of it. So, yeah, well done to Casemiro for what he's done this season. I think leaving Manchester United and being a big influence in getting them to the Champions League is enormous, because it gives that money back into the club, which allows the club to reinvest, obviously, in the sort of squad for next season, which is important. And the club should just be in the Champions League anyway with the size of it. So, he's done a great job this season, and he was very good today. Actually, at 1-0, he was in my sort of man of the match thoughts, high up there, but Bruno took over.
Because now Bruno, has the assist record in a season for Manchester United. He's also pushing towards the record for the Premier League as a whole, held by De Bruyne and Henry jointly. He's 4 short of that now. You just can't minimise the influence he's had on the club, can you, since he's been here?
No, he's been exceptional since he's come to the club. There was a period about 18 months ago where I thought that he went like this. And then there was a little bit maybe of a dip slightly below that standard, but it just feels to me now, right now, that he's playing the very best and the most comfortable that I've seen him. He's exceptional on the ball. He's seen passes early. He's always seen the pass early. But what I like about him most is that he basically looks the furthest forward to see what the maximum damage that he can do with a pass. And he finds and he looks for runners all the time. And I think that's what a midfield player or a player that plays as an advanced midfield player like him should do. You're either a passer or you're a dribbler. He's more of a passer, so he gets on the ball, his head's always up, he knows where he is, he gets into that sometimes right channel, sometimes that left channel, and he's always thinking who's pulling off the shoulder, who's making the runs in behind, and you've seen some delicious passes in this game, in between defenders, and I've got utmost admiration for him. I think also the whinging that I had a problem with 2 or 3 years ago, the sort of always have complaining that teammates always sort of going around, walking around, that's definitely tempered. I think he's matured because I don't think anybody likes to see that. That's not something that anybody likes to see. You want to see players coming together, and so I think his leadership's getting better. Obviously, he's admired enormously and respected by his teammates. You can see that, but his influence on the games is massive. And I think you've put up there now Cunha, Ahmad and Burmo, and then Šeško when he comes on, or Mount. He's got players who are more like-minded. Cunha's got an arrogance, and a really good arrogance that I really love about him, that he belongs out there on that pitch. And Bruno needs that alongside him. He needs players who can work at the same sort of what would be mindset as him, the same intelligence level, same confidence and the same belief. And I think they've all got that. Ahmad does that. He's always wants the ball, and Burmo always wants the ball. Šeško's growing, week by week, even though he's obviously been left out today. He's come on again and impacted the game. And I think Mount plays really well with Bruno Fernandes when he plays as well. So he's got players up there which are on the same wavelength as him all of a sudden. And I think that is having a big impact on him because it makes him look better and it makes them look better when he's around them.
Interesting that you talked about Šeško in the context of when he comes on. Is he making himself too useful as a substitute?
You asked me, didn't you, a few weeks ago about whether he's a super after the Everton game, was it? Yeah, maybe. And I said, no, I don't think he actually is a super sub. Because I think he looks like a type of player that's going to start games and be a sort of point as a centre forward. And I demanded actually after that game, I said I think he should start against Crystal Palace at the weekend, which was the next game. And he did. But there is no doubt that Michael Carrick, I think, likes the impact of bringing him on and likes looking over his shoulder and thinking, OK, I've got Mbeumo, I've got Ahmad, I've got Mount, I've got Cunha, I've got Fernandes, and they'll run them into the ground, and then we're more fluid with those players. We've got more legs, we've got more sort of what would be connection and combinations. I think that's how he sees it. However, with 25, 30 minutes to go as the game opens up a little bit and there's maybe a bit more, we need a goal or there's crosses going into the box, albeit there were crosses going into the box in the first half today, 2 or 3 of them, which Šeško might have liked. I think he thinks, I like bringing him on. So if you're bringing him on, rather than let's say you play Mbeumo on the right and you leave Ahmad on the bench, it's just not, Ahmad's fantastic, but it's not as big a presence as a centre forward. Bringing a centre forward on, I think always has a sort of bigger impact. And I think Michael Carrick likes something about having him maybe behind him. And that is maybe a slight problem for Šeško, but it's good again today that he's come on. But you're right, he is walking into that role of, at the moment, an impact player off the bench. But just remember, this is a young player. I think he really struggled at the beginning. I think he struggled for his confidence. He's now got his power in his legs. He looks stronger in his sort of physicality. He's got his goals and his confidence. He's also going to have a first season where he's going to do pretty well in terms of his goals. But next season, he's going to have a lot more matches. So there's going to be Champions League. And I keep saying it. Maybe I'm sort of being a little bit ahead of myself. But it does look like Manchester United will get into the Champions League now. It feels like they're the team that are really sort of starting to hit the straps and that look like they're ones that are sort of best placed. He's going to play a lot of football. And he's still young. I don't see him as a super sub. He's not a player that I see like that, but at the moment I think he may have to play that role for the rest of the season whilst Michael Carrick's just, doing what he's doing, because he's got a rhythm of him in coming on and winning matches, and that's something that managers won't like to change.
So, just a quick word on the run-in, because United now this season have beaten every single one of the other teams in the top 6. So, but they've dropped points against West Ham and they lost at Newcastle. So when you look at the run-in and the only team they've lost to, they've still got to play is Brentford. Do you then start to sort of fear that it's raising themselves for that kind of game that might cause them more of a problem? The likes of Bournemouth, Leeds, Brentford themselves, Sunderland, Forest, Brighton, those are the kind of games that they might fear more than your Liverpools and your Chelseas?
Yeah, and I don't think it's a case of raising themselves. I actually think it's the style of those teams that are the problem for this United 11, and not actually this United 11. I think you can go back 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Manchester United have often done quite well against teams that they can counter-attack against and can leave space in behind. When teams drop off and play a bit deeper and more compact and play on the counter-attack against them, I just think that, to be fair, every United team for the last 5, 6, 7 years has found it more difficult to operate against that type of team and the style of them. So I think it's about, in the summer, adding players who can play more patiently, who mean that when you do dominate possession, which United will maybe against those teams, they've got the creativity, they've got the presence of a back four who will sustain attacks. I think Arsenal do it really well. Arsenal, to be fair, when they sort of playing against a team like that, they almost suffocate them and they keep them in and they don't let them come out. And all the Arsenal players, including Gabriel and Saliba, are almost 20 yards outside the 18-yard box, which means that they just sustain attacks and then you just keep pressurising and you keep putting it wide and you keep recycling it. I don't think Manchester United have quite got the back four yet to be able to do that, to really sort of what would be sustain attacks and press in when they're attacking. So when Manchester United have got the ball in the opposition's final third and they're working it across, the defenders need to be really brave and be on top of it so that when it gets cleared out, there is no counter-attack for the team that are maybe sort of what would be bottomish of the table. They've got to make sure they just keep them in there and pen them in and work them and fatigue them. And I don't think they do that well enough right now, and they haven't done it for 5, 6, 7 years. But you need really brave defenders. I mean, when I played, we had Max Dowman and Ronnie Johnson. They were so brilliant at 2v2. They were fantastic. And then Vidic and Rio, outstanding at being able to press in and do that, which allowed the two fullbacks to go forward. It allowed one of the central midfield players to push in, which meant we were always maintaining attacks. And I don't think this United team have got that yet. But, look, there's another round of recruitment to go in the summer. It's obvious they had a plan last summer to improve attack. It's plainly clear they need to deal with central midfield. It might then be the summer after when they finally get round to new centre-backs, because they have got a problem at centre-back. The problem at centre-back actually is that at the moment that De Ligt and Martinez, arguably with Maguire, their two best centre-backs, they can't get on the pitch. And it's a real problem. Shaw is playing every week, and he's more than good enough to play out here every week. Let's be clear, but how long is that going to last for? Can he do that next season, the season after, and the season after? If he can, Luke Shaw's your left back, no problem, because I don't think you'll find better.
It'd probably be tougher for him if they were in the Champions League, wouldn't it? And they had extra commitments.
That's the issue. When the every 3 days comes, and United are going to need someone at left back to cope without him, because the reality of it is he going to break down if he's playing 55, 60 games rather than 35, 40? And that's the question that we'll need asking next season. So yeah, there is a doubt there, but not on the quality of the left back. It's on the actual sort of resilience and robustness of him when he plays every 3 or 4 days. However, Thomas Tuchel will be looking at Luke Shaw and thinking there isn't probably a better left back than him, but I can't play him every 3 or 4 days. And you've got Nico O'Reilly, you've got Lewis Hall, you've got Livramento, you've got Jed Spence, and he probably thinks that they are more capable of playing every 3 or 4 days in hot conditions in a World Cup, and that's why he may lose out, Luke Shaw. It's not through ability. I think he's been outstanding for United this season. And then at right back, you've got Dalot and Mazraoui at the moment, which I think for now is fine, but I think eventually in sort of, in the next round of recruitment, when it comes to defenders, which probably won't be this next summer, it'll be the summer after, will need dealing with. So, look, United, I think, there's been a bit of noise this week about this 150th anniversary, 2028, winning the title. It's too early for that. I mean, Michael Carrick himself said step by step. There is no way that Manchester United should be talking about the title, because 8 weeks ago, when we were sat upon this gantry against Everton, against Bournemouth, against whoever else they were playing out here that we were watching at that time, it was desperate. So we've got to be careful and jump ahead of ourselves and think that basically because United are third right now and looking in a good position for where they would have been at the start of the season, where they would have been 7 or 8 weeks ago, there's still a lot to do, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel maybe.
What of Aston Villa? I mean, we're talking now before the Liverpool game, so we don't know if they've lost fourth place. They stayed there because of Chelsea's defeat yesterday. What do you see for them in the Premier League between now and the end of the season?
I think you said, didn't you, partway through probably the last 10 minutes, that you felt maybe the Europa League might be their best chance of getting into the Champions League. That's incredible, really, to say that they're still, at this moment, fourth in the league. But you do get that feeling, and I have for a few weeks, and I've said it on this podcast for a few weeks, that I felt Villa would get caught and get grabbed. I think they were let off the hook maybe last night by Chelsea, because I think if Chelsea win, then they push right up level with them as well. I think losing Kamara, McGinn and Tielemans all at once is too big an ask. Today we saw a team that were lacking in real belief. I mean, they didn't play badly in the first half, but they were just playing what I call nice possession-based football. That they were actually taking more risks in their own defensive third and better football, playing better football sometimes, coming out of their own box than they were in the final third. Too nice, lacking in belief and confidence that's natural having had the run that they've had, and lacking punch and bite. And that mainly comes from the centre-forward being in real desperate form. I mean, it was a tough day out there for Ollie Watkins. He won't go back to Birmingham tonight feeling his best. When the ball got played up to him, he wasn't great. When he got one-on-ones in the boxes against Yoro and Maguire in the last part of the first half, they took it off him, which, it would be a dream scenario. If you said to Ollie Watkins, away at Old Trafford, you're going to get 2 one-on-ones driving against Lenny Yoro and Maguire in the corners of the boxes, and you're inside the box and they can't really tackle you with any sort of level of certainty because you're in penalty territory, and they're going to take it off you, be like, I can't believe that's not, but that's what's happened to him today. And he got substituted, didn't he, after probably just over an hour. And I have to say, I think he looks well off it, and his England place for the summer is really in doubt because of the current level of confidence he's at and the current sort of position he's in. It was a real difficult day for him, and a real on-fire Ollie Watkins could have caused problems here today, but that wasn't the case. I thought playing Rodgers out on the right-hand side, I think before the game we said, no, he won't play Rodgers on the right-hand side, didn't we? He doesn't play out here. I said, will McGinn play centrally, and Buendia left me. And we said, no, it's not. I mean, has that happened before? Has Rodgers played on the right?
He has played on the right before, but not very often.
Rarely.
Rarely, yeah.
It's interesting. Wayne Rooney, Danny Welbeck, Marcus Rashford, Anthony Gordon. You can rhyme them off. Players who've sort of played in that wide left, who've been centre forwards, who can play up front or play centrally and then go to the. They can't play on the right hand side. None of them can, and I don't think Morgan Rodgers, to be fair, everything just, it's just not right. He had the boy Bogard behind him, so he had no natural sort of outlet going round him. And I just thought you lost him for a large part of that match. And I thought the minute that he switched and went into a central area, that little flick round the corner which released the counter-attack which led to the corner for the goal, that to me felt like it unlocked something for Villa, and the confidence lifted for 5, 6, 7 minutes. But that was the only glimpse we saw of Aston Villa today, and they've got, look, it's a big ask. The one doubt I have that I'm not right is Unai Emery being the manager, because he knows how to get over the line. And can Villa recover from what we've seen out here today and what we've seen in the last couple of months? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they can recover to keep that Champions League away from United, Chelsea and Liverpool. I think they'll miss out, and I think they'll end up in the Europa League places. But it'd be amazing if they went and won the Europa League. I mean, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to see them in the Champions League next season, because I want that to happen, because I think I like Unai Emery a lot and I like Villa a lot as a club. But today they just looked a little bit... not lacking in confidence in terms of taking the ball, but it was all just a little bit like it's a game of possession. Not that they were really believe that they were going to go and win that football match. They didn't believe it. Inside here, they didn't think for 1 minute they were going to win that football match. And I think United had players on that pitch, they did, that thought, we have to win this, we will win this. Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, Casemiro, Ahmad. I thought they were players that played for United today that you thought, they want this game. That they really they want to go and win. They want to do things out on that pitch that will mean that our team will win. And I didn't think that Villa had any of those, really. I didn't think I saw a Villa player that I thought he's really going to take this team forward. They lack that spirit and energy today to do it.
You mentioned Unai Emery. Jamie Carragher said in his newspaper column this week that he should...
Do you read that?
Yeah, I do, actually. I'm paid to read it.
Don't pay to read, just get a screenshot.
But he did say that Unai Emery should be coming here as the front runner for the Manchester United job. Would you see it that way? Can you see Unai Emery as the manager here?
Look, he should be in contention because I've said before, I think he's the second best manager in the league when it comes to experience in Europe after Pep Guardiola. Mikel Arteta and Arne Slot will have something to say about that and think differently maybe, but Unai Emery's exceptional. I can say now I don't think Manchester United will, if Manchester United finish in the Champions League, which I think they will, I don't think they will take Michael Carrick out and put Unai Emery in. I don't think they'll do that. And that's not because I think Michael Carrick's a better coach than Unai Emery. I think that Unai Emery's exceptional and he's proved himself all over Europe and won trophies all over Europe. However, I just think that they'll think because of his record previously maybe at Arsenal, that it'll be too big a risk to bring him into Manchester United. It'll be too much of an upheaval, and Michael Carrick's got a sort of understanding of what happens here in this club, so I don't think it'll be an appointment that will be made. I think for Michael Carrick not to be the manager of Manchester United next season, it's going to have to be one of the sort of top managers in the world, and Tuchel's not there anymore. Your Ancelotti's, your Enrique's, those types of managers who are just exceptional and sort of world class. I don't think it's anybody. I mean, Unai Emery is in that category, but maybe slightly below that sort of top level of Champions League winner, of sort of Premier League and La Liga title winning managers. But he's an exceptional coach. I don't think he will be the manager here next year. But Carra's right. He should be in the running because Manchester United should keep their options open right now because you don't know what's going to happen before the end of the season. But I don't see him being here ahead of Michael Carrick, who's just doing his interview now.
So let's look back at the rest of the weekend, and a great weekend for Arsenal.
I mean, to be fair, you think of magical Premier League moments. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I felt a little bit emotional watching that last night, just for the young kid. It was really, really special, that. Special in a number of ways. One, the celebration, just the players on the pitch, the way in which, that's how football should be. The exceptional technique of the goal, which, to be fair, I've not heard too many people talk about, but maybe it has been talked about and I've not been watching. But the head, then the little touch with the left foot, but then the right foot, the two touches with his right foot, his opposite foot, then the next touch with his left foot and his left foot. He's touched all parts of his body to score that goal whilst gliding forward and moving with the ball. I thought it was an absolute beautiful goal. You need to be exceptional to be able to do that. He made it look so easy that it looked like anybody could do it. But honestly, there are very few who could do that. And to do it at 16 and become the Premier League's youngest ever goal scorer, and at a point where Arsenal needed it most, it felt like a defining moment in Arsenal's modern history. One, because they've produced a player that's done something exceptional on an individual level that's never been done before at that age. But secondly, that they've not won a title for 22 years. And that will be the picture, that will be the sort of the showcase moment, the video that gets played back when we sort of go at the end of the season into the Monday Night Football studio and we'll look back at the big moments of the season. It will be that moment and that celebration that I'm sure will be shown. Long way to go yet, not done, but it just felt like a pivotal moment and it was really special. I have to say, we can sometimes sit here and say that football, it maybe doesn't produce as exceptional a moments as it did. And you think of the Aguero goal 14 years ago now, or you think of the Van Persie volley here when Manchester United won the league in Sir Alex Ferguson. You think of Steve Bruce's headers. You think of the big, massive moments of teams winning Premier League titles and where those defining moments are. And that just felt to me like it was a difficult game for Arsenal. It was a real struggle all the way through. And they didn't play badly in the game, Arsenal, but Everton did really well and they've been good away from home. But I just felt it was a magical moment for Max Dowman, a magical moment for Arsenal. And I absolutely, it stopped me in my tracks. To be fair, I was sat in my kitchen table watching in the chair that I always watch matches. And And it was enough for me to actually call my wife over to say, just come and watch this, because I actually thought it was that big a moment. You know, she was actually in the next room, and I just shouted, I said, come and watch this. And this young kid's just scored a goal. He's 16, the same age as our daughter. I'm like, that can't happen. She's doing her GCSEs in 2 months, and this kid's doing his GCSEs in 2 months, and he's doing that in the Premier League, and it was really, really a beautiful moment.
But how carefully do you have to manage him after that? Because, you know, we've seen people like Charlie Patino come there as the next big thing, and then has sort of disappeared. We've had Waneri come through as a young player, and he's now gone out on loan. Miles Lewis Skelly, who came into the scene, hasn't been as involved this year. So how much of a difficult balancing act is it with Max Dowman from now on?
Look, I've seen this a lot in my life, thankfully, luckily, you know, the emergence of Ryan Giggs as a 16-year-old, David Beckham's goal at Wimbledon, which, to be fair, lit up the whole country and like put him into the spotlight. The Wayne Rooney introduction for England, and obviously he was at Everton at the time. He scored that volley against Arsenal, but then got pretty quickly with Wayne Rooney with England, and obviously with United. Michael Owen's goal with England against Argentina, I was on the pitch. I've seen this before, where Dele Alli, I think, I've seen it with Federico Makeda. You know, here, that goal against Aston Villa. And I've seen it where it works, and I've seen it where it doesn't work, where it doesn't quite follow up into something sort of what would be really spectacular that you think is going to happen. Ravel Morrison, I think, is someone as well that had exceptional talent. Maybe didn't have a moment like that, but was talked about in the same way. Look, this kid does look different. He looks like he's got a composure and a temperament that's right. It doesn't look like he's going to get carried away by things. But when you're 16, and I always remember going into the dressing room, first team dressing room for the first time at 18 at Manchester United, when you first start going and changing with them, and looking at Steve Bruce and Brian Robson and Eric Cantona and thinking, they've been doing this for 16, 17, 18 years. And Max Dowman's in that dressing room, and he's done it for a few months. And he should really keep his feet on the ground, and I'm sure he will. And I'm sure everybody will be working hard with him, his parents, his family, everybody at Arsenal, because he's got 20 years before he's made it. I always used to say, you've only made it in football when you get to the end. That's it. You know, if you're really going to be one of the very top players, and you're going to get to the top, be a top player in professional football at a club like this, or at Arsenal, or at Liverpool, you've never really accepted that you've made it. You can never feel that you've made it and you've climbed the mountain until that moment when you retire. So he's got 20 years in front of him to get to that point. So right now, it's about basically just doing the same things that he's been doing that's got him into that position that he's currently in. Having sensible people around him, good accountant, good lawyer, good advice from his parents, making sure that you restrict access to certain things that you know could distract him. I'm not going to name what those things are, but, you know, be a 16-year-old kid that has access to things that 16-year-old kids would ordinarily have access to. Work hard every single day and match the work ethic of Bukayo Saka, of Martin Odegaard, of Declan Rice. He's got good examples in that dressing room. Forget Saliba and Gabriel and maybe some of the more experienced. I know Saliba's not, but Gabriel's more experienced. Zubimendi. You know, players, just look at... I used to look at the others around me in my dressing room, and you had nowhere to go. Because if you've been playing for 10 years and they've got a lot of money in the bank and they've got a fancy car and they've got a big house and they played for the country 50, 60, 70 times and they've won medals for their country and they've won World Cups or European Championships and things like that, look at them, because they're the lads that really, to be fair, are doing it still every single day. There's no let up with this. You know, there's no easy shortcut or route to the end for Max Dowman, but it's a beautiful moment for him. He obviously didn't do any interviews after the game last night, which I think is completely and utterly acceptable. I think that, to be fair, it was right that I think Gyökeres did the interview I saw at the end of the match and actually wondered whether Max Dowman would do the interview, and I waited on to see whether he would, and he didn't do it. I think that's absolutely right, to keep him away from it. Try and keep him off social media. I've spoken to a lot of players in the last few months about how they need to manage modern media. So you're talking about sort of keeping him away from sort of what would be the headlines and sort of the interviews. That's easy for the Arsenal communications department. Keep him away from social media, because it sounds crazy, but even when it's like that, which it will have been last night, you know, Max Dowman was a god on social media last night, but he'll be the devil at some point. He'll miss a penalty. He'll get injured. He'll maybe get sent off and then react at a certain point in his career. And then you'll be on the other side of it. So you want to try as a football player to try and get rid of the roller coaster. And it is a roller coaster as a football player. You're young, you're full of adrenaline, you're full of fire, you're full of wanting to play, you've got massive ego, you've got massive confidence, you believe you're the best, but you still need to keep as much as possible on that level ground and try and keep away from the roller coaster. That's people around him, but that's also, I think, things that maybe he can do to help himself and deal with things in a way which means that he can just go home and have his cheat meal on a Saturday night, like his pizza, with calm. Because I'm sure when he walks down the street in the next few weeks, he's going to get a lot of love. But yeah, he's got some good people around him at that club. I think, Declan Rice, I think Bukayo Saka, Zubamendi. There's lots of them. Ødegaard. I never look at any of those players and think they're arrogant. They get carried away. They're big-headed. I think they're just really good lads who I see working hard every single week. All of them, really. I don't see any sort of players in the Arsenal squad that I look at and think, oh, they don't work hard, or they do my head in. They're all, really good professionals. At times you might not think that they're playing the best or whatever, but they're brilliant professionals and they're a good group.
Talking about professionals who've seen it and done it, Manchester City, bad week for them. How important now is the Carabao Cup final with the Champions League hopes hanging by a thread and the inexplicable, really, drop points against Forest and West Ham?
Yeah, and it was a mauling in Madrid. That'll have hurt them. We had moments like that where you're the kings of England. I mean, I know they're not at the moment, or Liverpool are, but Pep Guardiola will feel like he's the king of England in the sense of how many titles he's won. And to go there in such a showpiece game and have a mauling like that against you will have hurt them badly. So it didn't surprise me fully last night, and I watched the game against West Ham, and look, City are going to dominate possession. They're going to be probably the better team, and they are the better team. But it was a big night. What Max Dowman did, what Arsenal did, and then what happened after that with City. You're right, they're dropping points, they're making mistakes that you wouldn't ordinarily associate with them, and they've been doing that for quite a while now this season. And I've not thought they're going to get over the line for quite a while because they're just not quite there. There's something missing this season. I don't know what it is. Doesn't mean to say that they can't do it in this last 8 games because they're capable of ridiculous things. Pep Guardiola teams, they will respond, they will fight back. They're not going to give in. They don't do that. And like the Arsenal players that I've just talked about, these aren't professionals that sort of drop below sort of what would be their work ethic. They do fight every single week, but sometimes that game in midweek, they set up to go and take Madrid on, I think, pound for pound, or punch for punch, didn't they? And they got wounded. And I think that will have shocked them. That really will have shocked them. It'll take them a bit to get over. But they've got a week now, haven't they? Oh, they've got the game in midweek against Real Madrid. Mm-hmm. But they've got a final next week. So they've got 2 massive matches. And you haven't got time at a big club when you're playing in these types of matches to get 2 down. And they've got an opportunity to turn it around. They could end up this week doing very well against Real Madrid. I don't think they'll go through, but they could end up having a fantastic game. And they could end up with a medal round this time next week. So that would be an exceptional week for them off the back of a bad one. But the league title does feel to me like it's just slipping away.
And finally, a word about Chelsea, not just the strange week that they've had because they mauled Villa, but then lost to Newcastle. What did you make of that extraordinary huddle that Paul Tierney found his way into the middle of?
I thought it was extremely odd. Really weird. Look, I've never been a fan of huddles. If you've prepared for 7 months of a season, 4 days before a game, weeks before matches for a football match, and then you have to do a huddle 10 seconds before the start of a match to talk to each other, to motivate each other, you've done something wrong in the build-up as far as I'm concerned. No words can help you, in my opinion. I never did a huddle here in 20 years, and we were actually against it. Because no words should be able to help you 5, 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds before a football match. You've done all your preparation, you've ate well, you've stretched well, you've slept well, you've read your set pieces, you've looked at your sort of what would be the player that you're playing against, and you've analysed him, and you know how to sort of what would be nullify him, or you know how to sort of create opportunities if you're an attacking player. You've seen them visualise the game in your mind. And then you're in the changing room, to be fair, for 10 minutes before the match, before you come out, where those last minutes sort of like all the best. Let's go out there and do it. Let's make sure there's nothing down our side. Let's make sure we get crosses in. Let's make sure our first pass is... You've said everything. So what more can be said in a huddle out on a pitch? It's just for show. Absolutely, it's just for show. It's almost cultish. It's just for show. You know, for fans to be able to look at us, we're together. And the fans won't be conned by that, by the way. They'll just judge you on your performance. So
and to do it in the centre circle, is that just an attempt to intimidate opponents, mind games?
Well, it wouldn't intimidate, I think, a good team. It didn't intimidate Newcastle last night, who are a good side, even though they're not having the best of seasons. They're a good side, Newcastle. So it was weird. It's weird to do it in the centre of the pitch. It's almost like, what's the most gimmicky sort of like thing that will make everybody believe like we're a sort of like got an amazing spirit thing we can do that might... It's not conning anybody. It is not conning anybody. I'm not being sort of abrupt and blunt and ruthless here with my words for any other reason. I think it's a nonsense. I think the whole thing is a nonsense. I do. Stop doing it. Let players go in their position. You know, I used to go into my position as right back before a match, before a game, and I'd sort of get my distances and I'd look forward and I'd start to think about what, you know, I'm thinking about my... What if you said to me, go into a huddle, look, sometimes you have to do a minute's silence before a match. And to be fair, there were times where you knew you had to do that because it was absolutely the right thing to do. But that actually sometimes would disrupt me from a point of view of my actual preparation for a football match. I would think to myself, I want to start preparing. I want to do my sort of my squat jumps that I do. I want to do my quick feet. I want to make sure that I feel lively, and I want to sort of just move out to the touchline and back again and get my distances right. So there were things that I did in that period. So if someone said to me, come into the centre of the pitch for a huddle, 20 seconds before kick, that just wouldn't happen anyway. And none of us did that. And so I don't get it at all. The referee being in the middle of it, two things. One, he should have said, let me get out of here. 100%. Paul Tierney should not have stayed in the middle of that huddle. And secondly, the players of Chelsea should have said to him, ref, they should have let him out. They should have said, ref, can you just leave us? Or we'll just do it slightly. It was just absolute bizarre. It's just bizarre, this. I mean, we shouldn't be talking about it. Anyway, I'm probably giving it too many minutes of my podcast. But it actually really frustrated. And then to go and lose 1-0 off the back of it. I mean, honestly, I can't think of anything more ridiculous. I think they should stop it straight away. Because, and look, they'll probably do it the next game, but now it'll become a thing. I would stop it straight away. I would just nip it in the bud. Did they do it against Villa the other week?
Yes, I think they did it actually at the start of each half, yeah.
Start of each half?
But without the referee in the middle.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. So they've gone in at half-time. They've had 15 minutes in the dressing room and they have to come out and have a huddle at the start of the second half. Did they do it at the start of the second half yesterday?
I'm not sure. I didn't see the start of the second half yesterday.
I don't get it. I'd be interested to know if the Chelsea players actually get it and buy into it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, strange one. Well, there have been plenty of minutes on this podcast, Gary.
Yeah.
So
my daughter's ringing me. She's waiting for me in my car.
I'll let you get off to it.
Right, well done.
Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Bye.